Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take complicated subjects, heavy research, and big ideas and distill them into actionable knowledge that you can use immediately.
And today, we are tackling a really universal, uh, deeply frustrating paradox. It's one that plagues almost every single advanced English language learner out there.
We call it the proficiency trap. You, the listener, you've done the work, right?
Oh, absolutely. You've mastered the grammar rules. You can write these, sophisticated error-free emails. You can read complex articles with no problem.
You feel totally proficient on paper.
On paper, exactly. But the moment you step into a fast-moving, real-world English environment, say a crowded office meeting or a joke in a movie that goes by too fast.
Or just a casual chat on the street.
Yeah, that's a big one. It all just dissolves.
It doesn't just dissolve, it feels like it collapses. It becomes this wall of just chaotic, indistinguishable sound. You know the words are in there, but they just refuse to separate into meaning.
And that sudden drop-off, that gap between high academic knowledge and real-time comprehension, that's what we call the chasm between passive knowledge and active, real-world listening.
Right. And for years, the standard advice was, what, more textbook drills?
More drills, expensive immersion courses that frankly often don't work. But our sources today, they cut right through that. They say the most effective, accessible, and high-impact training ground. It's not a classroom at all.
It's the world of digital audio.
It's podcasts.
Podcasts are the solution. They are, and we're going to make this case pretty strongly, the single most effective tool available to bridge that listening gap and really to wire your brain for natural English comprehension.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is not just to give you a playlist of shows. That's easy. We're here to give you a methodology.
We're going to show you how to listen with purpose.
Our deep dive is going to cover three really critical areas. First, we'll explore the science. Why is audio fundamentally superior to video or text for training your comprehension?
Then second, we're going to unveil this four-step structured active listening framework. This is the method that turns simple hearing into powerful, retrievable knowledge.
And finally, we're going to give you a meticulously curated library of recommended content. And we've analyzed it not just by topic, but by linguistic difficulty, by host style.
So you can find the perfect podcast for your exact current level. And that's going to let you scale all the way up to native fluency.
And the crucial takeaway here, which we'll keep coming back to, is this. The path to fluency is not about finding extra time to study. Who has that?
Nobody. It's about leveraging the time you already have. Your commute, when you're cooking, cleaning.
And filling that time with the right kind of focused, purposeful sound. So let's dive into the science. Why does this work so well?
Well, when you just compare the input, right, there is a fundamental difference between the language you find in traditional learning materials and the language of real life.
Okay.
Academic English, the English of textbooks, it's clean, it's controlled. You could even say it's sterile.
It's polished, very polished. The vocabulary is deliberate, the sentences are grammatically perfect, and the speech is slow and clear. It's often read by professional voice actors.
Right. And while that's necessary when you're starting out for the basics, it utterly fails to prepare you for what one of our sources calls the beautiful messiness of real-world English.
I love that phrase, beautiful messiness. And that's what podcasts are, right? They're the authenticity engine.
They are. If you listen to a show made for native speakers, you are hearing the language exactly as it is used, complete with all its, let's call them imperfections.
And we need to get specific about what that means because it's those imperfections that trip learners up all the time.
Okay, so first you get exposure to the natural pace and rhythm. That includes all the stuff a textbook would just edit out.
Like filler words.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which are actually essential to conversational rhythm. They signal that someone is thinking.
They buy you time.
They buy you time. You hear speakers naturally interrupt each other. They overlap. They reformulate ideas mid-sentence. And critically, you hear sentences that are structurally imperfect. People trail off or switch grammar halfway through because they're speaking in real time, not reading a script.
And just recognizing and being able to process that chaotic rhythm is a huge part of real-time comprehension.
It's everything. And then there's the vocabulary. It's current. You're getting the real colloquialisms, the idioms that are being used right now.
Yeah, if your foundation is purely academic, you can end up sounding, a bit stilted or too formal when you're trying to be casual.
Exactly. Podcasts reveal the living, breathing slang and natural expressions. It's the kind of language that makes your own speech sound effortless and, modern.
Okay, what about vocal diversity? Because this seems like a really big one. A lot of people just focus on one type of accent.
This is arguably the biggest barrier to global comprehension. Limiting your listening practice to a single standardized accent like received pronunciation, or RP in the UK, or General American, is a huge mistake.
Hang on, though. I want to push back on that a little. Wouldn't starting with a standard accent make the initial learning easier? I mean, isn't General American or RP the clearest?
They are clear, yes, but they create a bottleneck.
Right.
The second you leave that classroom environment, you realize you're communicating with the whole world.
Right.
You might work with a colleague from Dublin, a client from Mumbai, a supplier from Sydney. If your ear is only calibrated to that one specific frequency, that single accent, all the others just dissolve back into that chaotic blur we were talking about.
So the single accent approach leaves you totally unprepared for global English.
Completely. And the podcast universe offers this unparalleled library of vocal diversity on demand. You can listen to someone from London, New York, Sydney, Dublin, Edinburgh.
Johannesburg.
And crucially, you hear highly proficient non-native speakers using English as a professional language. This is key.
So it's not just about noticing that an accent is different. It's about training your ear to recognize the specific phonetic shifts, right?
Exactly. You're training your ear to be flexible. So for example, compare vowel sounds. In General American, the ul sound in a word like hot is usually open and low. But in many British accents, it might be a bit higher and more rounded.
Or the letter R.
The R sound is a classic. It's strongly pronounced at the end of words in American English. We call that rhotic. But it's often dropped or silent in a lot of British, Australian, or New Zealand English non-rhotic.
So listening to a show from the BBC versus one from, say, NPR in the US forces your ear to practice translating those little phonetic shifts in real time.
It trains your auditory system to be adaptable, which is really the definition of advanced listening skill.
Okay, but you said the most compelling argument for podcasts over video is something you call the theater of the mind.
I did, and this is where it gets really interesting. Because most people automatically think video movies, YouTube, Netflix is better because you see more. But I call that a visual crutch.
A crutch, as in it's helping you but also kind of holding you back.
It is the ultimate comprehension crutch. When you watch a video, your brain gets flooded with visual data. Body language, facial expressions, the setting, all these context clues.
And your brain is smart, but it's also lazy. It takes the easiest path.
Exactly. The visual information provides that easy path to understanding the gist. And that lets the auditory processing center of your brain bypass the deep, difficult work of distinguishing words and interpreting syntax.
So you think you understood the scene, but what you actually understood was the body language and the context of the situation, while the actual English just sort of flowed past you.
Precisely. Podcasts remove that safety net. It's audio only. Your brain is forced to do all the heavy lifting through the auditory channel. And that process is highly demanding.
It has to distinguish between similar sounding words like three versus free.
It has to parse the meaning just from the sequence of sounds, interpret the tone of voice, and construct the entire mental context, the theater of the mind, based only on the language it's hearing.
That intensive, focused auditory workout is what develops the skill you need for effortless comprehension.
I always say, if you can understand a complex discussion podcast without any visual aid, you are truly fluent.
And finally, there's the practical advantage, which is huge. Unparalleled accessibility and integration.
The sources all agree. Consistency trumps intensity in language learning.
Yeah, you can study like a maniac for 3 hours on a Saturday, but 20 minutes every single day is infinitely more effective.
And that's what podcasts enable. They let you transform dead time into productive learning time. You can seamlessly integrate hundreds of hours of focused practice into your existing routine without having to carve out extra study blocks.
And we mean real integrated learning, like when you're commuting, driving on the train,
Or doing household chores, cooking dinner, doing the laundry, washing dishes.
exercising at the gym, or going for a run. All of these moments, which are usually just mindless repetition, can be instantly converted into language acquisition time.
Consistency is built on ease of implementation, not on willpower. And being able to just plug in your headphones and access high-quality, authentic language in those moments makes consistency, well, effortless.
Okay, so we've established the scientific and practical why. But as you mentioned earlier, just letting the English wash over you, passive listening, that's slow and it's inefficient.
Especially for intermediate learners who need targeted improvement.
Right. So we have to move now to the how, the framework that turns that passive noise into active, usable knowledge.
Right. The move from intermediate to advanced fluency requires a methodological shift. It's about moving from passive consumption to active engagement.
Yeah.
And this active listening framework, it's a multi-pass system that is dramatically more efficient than anything else.
But first, a critical prerequisite, which we cannot stress enough. This framework works best if you choose podcasts that provide a complete transcript.
Absolutely essential. That allows you to connect the sound to the text, which is the foundational memory mechanism we're relying on.
Okay, so what's step one?
Step one is the low-stress entry point. Step one, the first pass listening for the gist.
Okay, so this is just for psychological orientation, right? To reduce anxiety. No stopping. No looking up words.
Exactly. You listen to a manageable segment. I'd recommend 5 to 10 minutes straight through.
And the goal is just to grasp the big picture.
That's it. Before you press play, read the title and the episode description to get some context. And as you listen, you just ask yourself a few guiding questions. What's the main subject? What's the relationship between the speakers? Is the tone light or serious?
Can I just identify, say, 2 or 3 main points they tried to make?
Exactly. And we have to emphasize acceptance here.
Mm-hmm.
It is perfectly okay if large portions of this are just an incomprehensible blur.
Right. If you get, 40 to 50%, that's a win.
That's a huge win. You've successfully achieved the gist. You have a general mental map of the conversation, and that sets the stage for the next crucial step.
This is where the real work begins.
This is it. Step 2. The second pass deep dive with the transcript. You immediately replay that exact same 5 to 10 minute segment, but this time you read along with the transcript.
And this is the aha moment. This is when the chaotic auditory blur starts to resolve into distinct, structured, written words.
That simultaneous audio-visual processing is what locks the connection in your brain.
And this time you pause. A lot.
Constantly. This is the active clarification phase. When you hit an unknown word or a sequence of words that didn't sound like what's written, you stop. You look up the definition.
And here's an advanced tip. Use an English-to-English dictionary.
Yes. Reading the definition in the target language forces deeper semantic processing. It prevents your brain from taking the easy path of translating back to your native language.
But the biggest benefit of step 2, especially for intermediate learners, is finally understanding the secrets of connected speech.
This is the difference between writing English and speaking English. And it's probably the single biggest reason why learners fail to understand native speakers.
Because in real conversation, we don't pronounce words one by one. We just blend them all together. We link them, we reduce them, we even omit sounds.
Right. We should break this down. Let's look at 3 phenomena. Linking, assimilation, and elision.
Okay.
Linking is the simplest. A word ending in a consonant sound often links to the next word if it starts with a vowel. So pick it up sounds like pike it up. It runs together.
Like it's one long word.
Exactly. Then you have assimilation. This is where a sound changes to become more like a neighboring sound. A really common one is with nasal consonants like N.
Oh, give me an example.
Think of the phrase 10 points. When you say it quickly, the N sound shifts its place of articulation to match the P that comes after it. So it often sounds more like 10 points.
Wow. So your brain is hearing an M sound, not an N, and if you're only looking for the word 10, you're lost.
You're completely lost. And finally, you have elision. That's the dropping of a sound altogether. Usually a weak or unstressed vowel or consonant.
Like in common words.
Yeah, like history is often pronounced history, or library becomes library. The transcript shows the full word, but your ear is hearing the reduced, elided sound.
So pausing and realizing that the written word library corresponds to the spoken sound library. That's the light bulb moment.
That's the moment that starts rewiring your auditory comprehension.
So step 2 is the investigation connecting the messy reality of the sound to the blueprint of the text. So once we've done that, we've identified the gold, but we haven't, secured it yet.
That moves us to step 3. Active vocabulary mining. We're shifting from being readers to being language detectives. And the sources are really clear on this. Stop writing down single, isolated words.
That's so inefficient. It strips the word of its utility.
You have to capture words in context. The framework says you need to record 4 essential pieces of information for every new phrase or word. This ensures maximum retention and, really importantly, accurate future usage.
Okay, what are the 4 things?
First, the word or phrase itself. Let's use an idiom as an example to get the hang of something. We focus on phrases because that's how language actually lives.
Okay, second.
Second, the original sentence from the podcast. This is the non-negotiable context. So for instance, it was incredibly difficult at first, but I think I'm finally starting to get the hang of using this new software.
Third, a simple definition in English.
Crucial for solidifying that English-only thought pathway. So definition. To learn how to do something after some practice. To become reasonably proficient at a skill.
And fourth, and this is arguably the most critical for memory, a personal sentence.
Yes. You must create a sentence that is true for your own life. You have to link the new vocabulary to a personal experience or emotion.
Like, I was terrible at baking last year, but I'm finally getting the hang of making sourdough bread now.
Exactly. By linking getting the hang of something to your personal struggle or success, you tag that phrase with an emotional marker. That makes it exponentially more retrievable when you need it in real conversation months later.
That's a brilliant way to ensure you can actually use it. So we've deconstructed the listening, the vocabulary, the text. The final step has to be production, right?
It is. Step 4. Shadowing for fluency and pronunciation.
Okay, so define shadowing. What is it exactly?
Shadowing is when you listen to the audio and you speak along with the host, mimicking their pronunciation, their rhythm, their intonation as closely as you can, usually just a split second behind them.
It sounds awkward. And I know for learners, it feels really unnatural at first. Why is forcing yourself to mimic sound so effective? What's happening in the brain?
It engages what are called the mirror neurons. You're linking your auditory input directly to your motor output system, your mouth and vocal cords. You're forcing your brain to process the sound and reproduce it instantly.
So you stop thinking about why the host sounds that way and you start focusing on how they sound that way.
Exactly. And the primary goal here is not perfect word articulation. It's capturing the music of the language.
The suprasegmental features.
Right? The sentence stress, the melodic rise and fall of intonation, the overall pace. English is a stress-time language, and that rhythm is key to sounding natural. Shadowing trains you to feel that rhythm.
And there's a practical hack for this, right? To get immediate improvement.
Yes. Record yourself.
Ah.
Take a 30 to 60-second segment you've been practicing, record your version, and then listen to the original and your version back to back.
That sounds brutal.
It's the fastest, most brutal, but most effective feedback loop there is. You instantly hear the specific differences in pitch, stress, or pronunciation that you were previously unaware of. It allows for incredibly rapid self-correction.
So by applying this whole methodology, just deep dive, mining, shadowing, you're turning a short 10-minute clip of audio into a comprehensive 45-minute lesson. It covers all 4 core skills.
Listening comprehension, vocabulary acquisition, pronunciation, and fluency training. This is how you systematically chip away at that intermediate plateau.
Okay, but the biggest barrier for most people is just choice. There are millions of podcasts. Where do you even start?
Right, it's paralyzing choice overload. So we need a path, not just a list. Our library is structured to guide you from supported learning all the way to true native level comprehension.
And since we're targeting the intermediate learner, we'll spend less time on absolute beginner stuff and focus on the bridge shows and the really difficult material.
So category 1, the bridge and intermediate foundations. These shows are designed to transition you smoothly from classroom English to natural English.
The language is clear and well-structured, but the hosts are native speakers.
And the essential show here, I think, is Luke's English podcast.
Oh yeah, he's a legend, and for good reason.
Luke's a fantastic model. He's a qualified teacher from London with a very clear, slightly elevated London accent, but it's not, inaccessible RP. His speech is natural but highly regulated for clarity.
And he provides full, accurate transcripts for a lot of his episodes.
Which is key. And he uses his comedy background to make the content really engaging. He manages to sound authentic while staying maximally comprehensible.
Then there's All Ears English. This is for American English.
Yeah, the hosts are these high-energy American women, and they focus on idiomatic expressions, pronunciation tips, and the cultural context of American English.
Their whole philosophy is connection, not perfection.
It is, and their focus is less on academic grammar and more on practical, modern usage. And because there are 2 hosts, you get practice tracking, turn-taking, and conversation. But they speak at a moderate, consistent pace that's easier to follow.
And for a quick hit, a kind of micro-practice.
The English we speak from the BBC, it's incredibly efficient. Each episode is only about 3 minutes long, and it focuses on teaching a single modern English idiom.
Like in the loop or
Yeah.
spill the beans.
Exactly. And this works perfectly with our active listening framework because you can apply all 4 steps to a tiny, manageable clip every single day.
Okay, so once you're comfortable with those bridge shows, you have to move on. What's next?
Category 2, gateway podcasts. These are shows made for native speakers, but they have exceptionally clear, consistent hosts and high production quality.
This is where you start dipping your toes into real native speed content.
Let's start with storytelling, because the narrative structure helps you predict what's coming next. We recommend This American Life.
The host, Ira Glass, is key, isn't he?
His voice is so distinct, and his narration style is almost journalistic in its precision. He uses a slightly higher pitch and really precise articulation, which makes individual words easier for the brain to segment, even at native speed.
Plus, the stories are just compelling. You want to keep listening.
Exactly. Another storytelling one is The Moth. This is true, personal stories told live on stage.
So this is 100% authentic delivery.
It is, but the stories are prepared and practiced. They follow a clear narrative arc: setup, complication, climax, resolution. That structural regularity makes the content easier to follow than, say, a random chat between friends.
Okay, what about for people who prefer educational content?
Two great options. First, Stuff You Should Know.
Oh, I love that one. Josh and Chuck.
They have a wonderfully clear conversational American style. And because they're explaining complex concepts, their diction stays consistently clear, even when the pace picks up.
And the second one.
Freakonomics Radio. This show explores the hidden incentives and the data-driven side of life. The host, Stephen Dubner, is a master.
And the production quality is pristine. The audio is always perfect.
Right. And it exposes you to interviews with experts, so you get practice with high-level academic vocabulary. But Dubner always provides that reliable anchor for the listener.
So if you can consistently follow those gateway podcasts using the framework, you're ready for the final frontier.
You are ready for Category 3, the deep end. This is unfiltered, high-complexity, wide accent, high-speed language. This is the real test of fluency.
When you can process these comfortably, you've pretty much made it.
For news, we recommend The Daily from the New York Times.
Michael Barbaro, the host, is generally very clear.
He is, but this is advanced because it's a deep dive into a single story. It requires high focus, and it exposes you to a massive variety of accents and speaking styles from reporters, politicians, interview subjects.
Yeah.
You have to switch your auditory processing constantly.
And for something faster.
Up first from NPR. It's a 15-minute, fast-paced summary of the day's top news. The hosts have perfect diction, but the pace is relentless. It's a great test of focus and recall.
Okay, and now for the conversational masterclasses, the real messy stuff. We have to talk about the Joe Rogan experience.
Linguistically, it is the ultimate test of endurance and flexibility. These are long, completely unscripted conversations, often 2 to 3 hours.
Full of high-speed American conversational patterns, filler words, slang, interruptions, massive tangents.
Wait, isn't that exactly what we told people to avoid at first? How on earth do you study a 3-hour conversation?
You don't. That's the secret. You don't try to use the framework on the whole thing.
Yeah.
You treat it like a natural immersion environment. You listen passively for exposure, and then you use the framework only on a small 5-minute clip where someone tells a focused story or explains a concept.
It's the ultimate test of understanding unfiltered language, requiring you to accept a high level of ambiguity.
And for a bit of British conversational dynamics.
My dad wrote a porno. It's a masterclass in modern, rapid-fire British humor. The three hosts have distinct London accents, use tons of British slang, and frequently talk over each other. It's challenging, but incredibly rewarding.
But before we move on, we have to repeat the key to motivation, regardless of the category.
The best podcast for you is the one you are genuinely passionate about. If you love gardening, or business, or ancient history, or competitive gaming, find a show on that specific niche.
Your own interest acts as the fuel.
It does. When you're invested in the topic, the language difficulty becomes secondary. You're learning something you want to know, which makes the hard work feel effortless.
Use your passion as your compass. Okay, now that you have the method in the library, let's make sure you have the tech and the strategies to deal with the roadblocks.
Right, leveraging the right technology isn't just about convenience. It's about making the active listening framework as efficient as possible.
So let's start with the podcast app. What is the single most important technical feature?
Variable playback speed. Without it, you can't effectively bridge the gap.
Being able to slow it down to 0.75x speed.
It can instantly transform content that's too fast into something manageable. You can use Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but independent players like Overcast or Pocket Casts often give you more granular control.
And there's no shame in using the 0.75x setting. It's a training tool.
It's a training tool, not a sign of failure. The other non-negotiable is the transcript. You said the website is the best source, but what about for those deep-end shows that don't provide them?
AI is your friend here. Services like Otter.ai, they're helpful, though imperfect, alternatives.
They can generate a text version of the audio that's maybe 85% to 95% accurate.
And even with errors, having that text available for step 2 of the framework is transformative. It lets you visually ground the sound chaos.
Let's spend a minute on step three's tech, though. Spaced repetition systems, or SRS.
This is huge for advanced vocabulary retention.
SRS apps like Anki or Quizlet are the difference between learning a word once and owning it forever. The power is in their algorithm.
It schedules when you see a flashcard again, right?
Exactly. It tracks how easily you recall a word and shows it to you right before you're about to forget it. This optimizes your memorization time.
So how do we build a really effective flashcard using the 4 points from our framework?
You use a technique called close deletion. So instead of the front of the card just saying get the hang of, you put the full original sentence on the front, but you mask the target phrase.
So it would say, it was difficult at first, but I think I'm finally starting to using this new software.
Right. And that forces active recall in context. You're not just memorizing a definition, you're recalling the usage.
And the most advanced technique is embedding the audio.
Yes, most SRS apps let you upload a short audio clip of the phrase directly onto the card. Now, when you review it, you see the sentence, you hear the phrase pronounced in context, and you have to recall the word.
That creates this robust multisensory pathway for memory.
It turns a static vocab list into a powerful retention engine.
Okay, let's troubleshoot. Let's talk about the real-world anxieties.
Let's start with the big one. I feel hopeless. I don't understand anything. This usually happens when a learner tries to jump into Category 3 content way too quickly.
Yeah, that despair is real. It's a clear signal, isn't it? What's the empathetic solution?
It means the content is too high level. You're trying to climb a mountain that's too steep for your current conditioning. The solution is mandatory retreat, and there is zero shame in it.
Go back to Category 1 or 2 shows, like Luke's English podcast or This American Life.
The rule is, if you can't understand at least 40% in that first pass, it is not useful for active learning. You need material that's challenging, but not so hard that you can't leverage the transcript.
Okay, here's another common one. I listen constantly on my commute while cooking, but I'm not seeing any improvement. They feel stuck.
If you're not improving, you are stuck in the trap of passive listening. That constant background exposure is great for ambiance, but it doesn't drive structured learning.
The solution is mandatory, scheduled active engagement.
Exactly. You have to ask yourself, am I actually carving out 15 minutes 3 times a week to sit down and execute the active listening framework?
Am I stopping the audio to mine vocabulary, or am I just letting it wash over me?
Passive listening provides exposure. Active learning provides acquisition. You have to choose specific segments and apply the framework, especially Step 3, mining, and Step 4, shadowing, to see real improvement.
What if they still feel the English is too fast? I can't keep up, even at the slower speed.
The problem might not be the speed of the audio, but the density of the vocabulary. The solution is to isolate the problem.
Use the transcript and the 0.75x speed.
And if the words themselves are clear but the meaning is lost, it's a vocabulary deficit. If the words are still running together, it's a connected speech issue. In either case, go back to a slightly easier Category 2 podcast, like Stuff You Should Know, and use Step 2 to break down those connected speech reductions until your ear adapts.
And finally, I get bored and lose focus easily, especially when the topic is challenging.
This is a direct content issue. You are listening to a show you feel obligated to listen to, not one you genuinely enjoy.
The brain is hardwired for interest. If the content doesn't stimulate you, your attention will wander.
And language processing will just stop. Ditch the dry, generic news show you think you should listen to and find the niche podcast about film reviews or mountain biking or historical crimes that you want to listen to.
Passion is the ultimate retention hack.
It all connects back to the beginning. Consistency is built on ease, and ease is built on enjoyment.
Claim those pockets of dead time, leverage the power of the transcript, and use the multipass system to turn that initial chaos into clarity.
We started this deep dive with that incredibly frustrating paradox, right? The advanced learner trapped on that plateau, watching their paper proficiency just dissolve into a blur of sound.
But we've moved past simple frustration by adopting a powerful strategic methodology. You now have the science, the 4-step framework, and a curated library to guide your ascent.
And the reward for this consistency is genuinely transformative. When you commit to active listening, you stop struggling to follow, and you start anticipating.
The rapid-fire sounds resolve themselves into distinct words and phrases. You start to understand the nuance in an idiom or the subtext in a complex argument.
The ultimate realization of fluency is when you're deeply engaged in a fast, native-speed conversation, a podcast or a real meeting, and you suddenly realize you haven't been studying at all.
You've just been listening, effortlessly, as the language flows through you.
So, choose your first gateway show. Pick a short segment, download the transcript, and just trust in the process of active deconstruction.
Embrace that initial discomfort, because the only difference between an intermediate learner and an advanced listener is a strategic methodology and hundreds of hours of focused repetition.
And remember this, the entire world of English is having a conversation right now. The path to fluency is not about finding extra time. It's about filling the time you already have with purposeful, active listening. Go plug in your headphones.